the issue of online privacy legislation is one that is generating some buzz right now because it is a big, big issue in terms of where we're headed as a society, as a country. The world, the internet, and the impact, the influence it has is not going away, of course. It's only going to get bigger, and privacy is fast becoming a huge, huge concern all over the globe. Boris Segalis, who's a partner with Info Law Group, is joining us right now and here to talk more about the legislation that is being proposed and considered at this point. First off, before we get to that, what is your biggest concern, given the fact that we are seeing a number of breaches on many different fronts, whether it happens to be personal privacy, corporate privacy, small businesses, et cetera? What do you think?
Well, there have been obviously a lot of breaches of personal information and a lot of identity theft associated with it. So I think that the legislation that Senator Blumenthal is proposing is looking to deal with that. But the bigger picture, I think my bigger concern as far as for companies, right now there's a very complex scheme in place of privacy, and mostly we're talking about information security regulations. Essentially, 46 states and U.S. territories all have different information security legislation. So it makes for a very complex legislative landscape for companies to comply with. So here we're talking about the theme of simplifying things, and having federal information security legislation would simplify things and lessen the burden on companies.
Why do we need federal if individual states have their own security legislation in place, knowing that every state wants to respond differently to the needs of its of its constituents?
Well, the truth is that companies operate nationwide. So what happens is that every state has the law is a little bit different. So to give you an example, for example, if a company that operates nationwide suffered an information security breach that affected health information of people who live in New York, North Carolina, and New Jersey, it would have to follow different requirements in all those states, notify regulators in those states on different forms. The breach might be a breach in New Jersey and might not be a breach in New York. Because this breach would be covered by federal health law, there would be no obligation perhaps to notify New Jersey, to notify individuals, because that law exempts companies that follow that federal law. But in New York and North Carolina, they would. It's an extremely complex system. And I think that, to be honest, I mean, as an attorney, I have to admit that to a large degree, who benefits from this system are law firms that are charging up to $900 an hour to advise companies on how to navigate these complexities. So what the federal law is doing is trying to preempt those state requirements and take the best elements of those requirements and put them in one law that would essentially preempt state legislation. I think it would be a great help for companies.
How receptive are states to this effort that's being done by the feds, though? Do the states welcome this move to have a overall federal, a federal law to trump anything that's going on in the states?
I know that businesses are receptive, and I know that there's bipartisan support in Congress for information security legislation. That's separate from privacy. There's consensus on information security. How states react to it, I mean, this law, the proposed law in the Mary Bono Act, SAFE Act, they combine, I would say, the best parts of those laws. But there are some states where the requirements might be more strict. For example, some states require notification regardless of whether there's threat of identity theft, and others say you only need to notify if there is the risk of identity theft. So the federal law contains that harm threshold, and some states do not. So I think overall, this is a good way to clean up this mess, I would say.
What do you like about this bill that's being proposed right now? What do you think is some of the key elements that make it, one that we could really see make a difference?
I think that, again, its biggest strength is that it combines the best aspects of state information security
legislation. In combining
legislation.
that, are there some specific areas that you can let us know more about?
Of course. So there's a requirement to have a comprehensive information security program that includes administrative, technical, and physical safeguards. Right now, there's not a comprehensive federal law. There's no requirement generally for companies to safeguard personal information. There's some state requirements here and there, requirements that are applied to health information or financial, but nothing overall. So this law would have that. And it's more specific. It talks about having regular testing, having a risk assessment, managing your vendors, training your employees. So that's very good because it gives companies a path to be more secure in safeguarding personal information. And the other element is that what I like is the definition of information that's within scope of the Act. If you look at some of the state laws, they require notification just for a very narrow set of personal information. Let's say if it was your name in combination with a social security number or your name in combination with a driver's license number, with some variation. So what this bill does is that it takes a more comprehensive view of it. It says it does include the traditional definition, but it also says that if your financial account number is breached or accessed by itself, that's a breach. And then it has a catch-all provision that says that if other information is breached that allows individuals, unauthorized individuals, to get access to your social security number or your financial information, that would also be a breach. So it expands the definition of personal information, of what a breach essentially would be.
What it would be, exactly. And the bottom line here, though, as we're summing up, is that identity theft and breaches like this are something, as much as we hate to admit it, we have to live with it. I mean, it's out there. There are people who are going to be able to have access to your personal information, and there's a huge market right now, of course, for security firms and all to try to find ways to, counter that. But if people want to get this information, there are very clever people out there who know how to access it.
That is true. I mean, hackers are very smart and they outsmart security companies, but I think that there still has to be a concerted effort to protect information.
Right, and that's why these kinds of things, I mean, that's why having this type of federal legislation would cover it in a very direct way.
It would cover it in a direct way, and it would ease burdens on companies that right now have to comply with this patchwork of state legislation. So it would be a very good thing.
All right, terrific. Great to have you on board today. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your thoughts about this legislation that I know a lot of people are going to be hearing more about, and hopefully it will make a difference.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.